Well, let's just start. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name's Peter McCarthy, and I'd like to welcome you all to our webinar or our industry leadership interview. Today, I have Vasily Tsouras with us. Vasily, welcome.
Thanks, Pete.
Good to have you here. Sometimes if I'm just looking from left to right here, I'm just admitting new people into the discussion during the course of the day. And of course, I'll just welcome Don, who always seems to turn up late, but you're right on time today, Don, so thanks for joining us. But look, I'd just like to introduce Vasily. I don't even know how long we've known each other, but it's at least a decade or so, Vasily. Vasily is the CEO of Allstate Pest Control, a family-owned business that's been operating for quite some time, since 1986. So even before I joined the industry. And so that family business has gone from being a small family holding of 3 people to now employing 45 people. I've met Vasily in his office over in Adelaide on a number of occasions, and it's a truly professional outfit. So that same professionalism I see Vasily bringing not only to his business, and obviously to his day-to-day life, but also as the president of the AEPMA. And AEPMA has a catch cry as the voice of the pest control industry. And for me personally, having known the industry and known the AEPMA for 30 years, I can safely say over the last 18 months, I've seen this association not only dominate the airwaves to assist us all through this COVID process. I really feel a level of professionalism. So from me, as an industry member, Vasily, I want to say thanks. And I think you guys are doing a pretty bang up job.
Yeah, thanks, Pal. I mean, we definitely try. There's no two ways about that. And no one's perfect, and neither are we, but yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people forget that AEPMA is essentially an industry-based or a volunteer-based organisation where, industry members are just basically helping other industry members. And I think that's what our industry particularly has needed over this last 18 months, both some guidance, some leadership, and just day-to-day assistance with these new regulations and compliances and issues that we're facing.
Yeah, 100%. Yep, that's exactly right. Most of the people that are doing something for AEPMA are volunteers, and funnily enough, they're paying for the privilege by being a member in the first place. So, that it is important to note that is the case. I mean, sure, we have a national office, we have a executive director, Stephen, and someone that works with him, Orla, and they do a sensational job. But all the other cogs in the wheel are made up of volunteers. So.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is both the sub branch and the state level linking in with the national level, and then obviously reporting to yourself and that team. There's a lot of cogs in the wheel, and it's interesting, to see how both Facebook and social media and just modern communication has helped us all through that last 18 months.
100%. And it's something that the association continues to work at, trying to be better at. That's for sure. I mean, again, when I say that we're not perfect, it's probably the ability to communicate is, something that all organisations struggle with and try and improve on, and definitely the case for AEPMA, and we're getting better at it. And that's the important thing, that improvement's happening. I can talk for, in our business, in Allstate, we use Microsoft Teams, and if it wasn't for Microsoft Teams and the ability for us to communicate quickly to everybody in a very user-friendly space, we would have struggled, where in fact we excelled through the whole COVID process because of that ability. So, I've learned these lessons, and Teams is something that we use in AEPMA now as well, within the board and the executive and the committees that exist. But 100%, social media is something that the association needs to be better at using, and it's definitely something that we're working towards with. Yeah.
Well, from a Facebook perspective, even the communication that the association has made, not only to its members through social media, I guess the openness that the association has actually communicated a lot of these challenges of the last 18 months to non-members. In the past, so I'm sort of congratulating the association on that too, because I guess communicating through the Australian Pest Managers Network. There's obviously a large group of individuals and companies represented there in our industry, but also lots of non-members. But I guess I've been really impressed how the association is just leading by example and sharing information and assisting members and non-members alike. And I just think that's something that's new and commendable. And I think like businesses are actually actively out assisting their clients and communicating with non-clients in the hope of gaining new business. I think the association's winning a lot of kudos with this last 18 months.
Yeah, and membership numbers have grown, funnily enough. So potentially that's got a bit to do with it, which is awesome. So, yeah, I mean, look, obviously not everything gets shared. And, you know, members typically are informed, re-informed, you know, things are addressed on a weekly basis. And when it's appropriate and in the interest of the industry as a whole, we definitely share where possible. Not on the national page, but there was and not on the network page. It was I guess, a competing Facebook group. Last week, I shared a list of all the things that AEPM has done in the last couple of months. Because the question was, you know, what does AEPMA do? So Stephen and I put a list together of all the things that we've been doing, touching, talking about, and all of the other people in the organisation. And yeah, I do think it does. It has helped and changed some minds as to the value of AEPMA. So, and that's good, you know, because it's something that I mean, I'm proud of being a part of AEPMA, and most certainly believe that we should all be giving back where we can to the industry that, you know, supports us. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, it's interesting from a small business's perspective. A small business of, you know, I guess there's a large number of pest management businesses that take up that sort of 1 to 5 employee space. And so, you know, they're the types of businesses that just have an inability to, you know, constantly know what's happening, particularly in COVID. And I guess with this last 18 months, I guess I've been able to see how the associations liaise directly with government. None of us have the time to do that. And so, I mean, I'd say that has been one of the challenges to try and maintain the discussion or be out front of the discussion with being an essential worker. So what are some of the other challenges that COVID has presented the association in the last couple of months?
Oh, well, I mean, COVID is most certainly
that is it.
The number one. Yeah, that's right. It's pretty hard for there to be almost anything else on the radar right now. I mean, look, you know, the thing, I mean, AEPMA is a very, very small business. So there's all the normal business challenges that every business has. You know, there's been times where Stephen and Orla weren't able to be at the office and therefore working from home because of lockdowns, you know, potential exposure to COVID, and then they've had to have testing. So there's all the normal business stuff. You know, having board meetings is difficult when it's always online. Sometimes it's important to actually, you know, typically in the past we had one face-to-face a year where it was longer, and, you know, a strategic plan was looked over and business plans and so on. It's very hard to do that, you know, on a Teams or a Zoom meeting every time. So that's been difficult as well, not being able to do that. Obviously, moving the conference is a massive logistical nightmare. There's a lot of refunds that needed to be done, a lot of you know, accounting work and negotiations with the conference facility and so on. So it's been a very, very busy time, I must admit. You know, there was a lot of work going into the conference, and then we had to undo a lot of that work. Not that it's completely undone, because the conference will go ahead as it is, you know, in June next year. And you know, the decision was taken early on that we had to shoot for the conference because the industry needed it. You know, as a whole, we all needed that opportunity to see each other and break bread again. And, you know, and it was going to be massive. You know, there was awesome numbers registering for the conference, or the delegate numbers were really, really good, better than they'd ever been going into a conference at that time. So, you know, I've got no doubt that when the conference does come around, it's going to be massive and it's going to be exciting, and you know, all that hard work, you know, isn't lost. But, you know, to then have to just processing refunds to delegates is, it sounds easy, but, you know, it's time consuming. So these are the challenges that we've faced over the last, you know, month or two. But, you know, they're challenges that every business face. So, you know, we've all got challenges at the moment, and unfortunately, most of them start and end with COVID. So, you know, that's the reality.
Well, the conference sort of being cancelled, I think it's not just a financial blow, and as you say, it's a opportunity to break bread. It's obvious. It's also the way that a lot of companies, you know, launch their products for the year and catch up with clients face to face.
Yeah.
But I think it's a psychological blow too, because I think we all just do need to catch up and talk about all the different like business processes that have changed over the last year, the way we meet with our clients, the way we control pests haven't really changed, but a lot of the elements interacting around that is changing, be it from a compliance perspective or a technology perspective. So it's a blow. It's a real blow.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. I was definitely looking forward to it. So, and I think that all that will mean is that we've just got something to look forward to in June next year. So that you know, like I'm you know, I'm always the kind of person that tries to look for the positive in something. So, okay, well, we don't get to do it in September, but it's only going to make it better in June next year.
Yeah.
You know, it's at an awesome location. The Gold Coast works for pest control conferences.
Yeah, it always has.
Yeah, it's in winter still, so you know, it's in the time when most of the industry has a bit of time to take a deep breath. So you know, I'm sure it's going to be the biggest conference that we've ever had, and I'm super excited because I think you're right. We all need that time with each other just to you know, catch up with friends, and you know, like I said, break bread and you know, and then just fine tune the way the industry is heading and the way our businesses are operating in the new markets.
Yeah, indeed. Now that's an interesting question here. I've been involved in the industry for 31 years, coming from horticulture into pest control, but I remember really early on working with gentlemen like Ross Blackmore, and rest in peace, Ross, a life member of the association. The interesting thing about the association back in those days, it was run out of the front office of the Velsicol chemical company. Now, for those of you new to the industry, Velsicol manufactured Heptachlor and Chlordane. And I often sort of think back now, being more suspicious or maybe older and wiser, that the likes of the Shells and Velsicols that were very much involved in the association, they really utilized, or therefore used, the association to try and maintain access to their own chemistry. But I have to say, back in 1995, when we lost organochlorines, AEPMA at the time got in a sense the industry together, and actually Don is here. I remember Don presenting there, and we're all just basically traveling around the country trying to tell the industry, or at least reassure the industry, that there would be life after organochlorines. And I have to say that back in 1995, and to what the association has done in this last 18 months, is been really similar, right at the front foot. You can never really be ahead of the game with COVID, but I back to what I was saying before, I think it's really positive that I guess that the association has really just been on the front foot. Now, back in those days, one of the triumphs was at least educating a marketplace.
Yeah.
How is it that, I guess, we can educate the marketplace? I mean, putting COVID aside for the time being, what involvement, I guess that would be back to the codes of practices and all the other elements, but tell us about some of the training opportunities that the association will be involved in.
So you're talking about training to people outside of our industry, or people inside of the industry?
More so,
more
so inside our industry, like, you know, how do newcomers find out about, obviously, just learning what they need to learn? But I guess what sort of support is AEPMA sort of fostering with training, support, codes of practices, all those things?
Well, I think the good thing is that the board now has so many people that actually you know, are very, very training centric, or they have a passion in training. So there's actually 3 people now that, you know, so they're very, very pro training, and the discussion around training is obviously high on the agenda, and it's something that, you know, I see it on the Facebook groups that there's always a conversation about training and there needs to be improvement in this space.
Yep.
And it's definitely not lost on the board. And as a business owner, also, it's most certainly not lost on me. So, you know, we're constantly in my business looking at, okay, how do we do this better? Because it's clearly not as good as what it could be or should be. And then that conversation happens at AEPMA as well. So I genuinely believe that over the next sort of, you know, year to 5 years that, you know, there's going to be a truckload of work put into this space, because it is the biggest issue in the room, if you ask me.
Yeah.
We need to fix it. There needs to be work to, you know, we need to work on this, you know. However, it's not, personally, I think it's, you know, this is me talking about a business owner now. I look at it and I consider this, you know, in our organisation, our fault and our responsibility. So, and I think I've had conversations with other pest control owners of businesses, and I think you come down to the same conclusion as, like, the owners of businesses in our industry need to commit to this.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
it's actually incumbent on us to make sure that we're training our people properly,
Yeah.
and instead of always chasing profit. Now, you know, how do we get these guys working as quick as possible, doing the least amount of training possible, is almost the, you know, the thing that we're all trying to do. And really, we need to be thinking about how do we train these people so that they really enjoy their jobs and stay with us for a long time and do the best work they can possibly do. So, you know, it's a big one. It's one that needs to be worked through, and I think we all need to do it together. You know, and I do think the most important people in this process are most certainly going to be the owners of businesses, the decision makers, because they're the ones that actually have to make the choice to change this, because the market is only servicing what we want right now, and that is cheap, quick training to get people licensed. So yeah, there's education that needs to happen in this space, and you know, and we all need to work harder at making this better.
Yep.
We've got the field biologist course. There's training. You know, we're looking at training around some of the codes of practice that's happening. There's also training that, you know, we're being involved in training people outside of the industry now. So there's a course that there's some people, hard working people for building certifiers. So there's a course that AEPMA is putting together for building certifiers to go through so that they understand termite control in new construction. So yeah, look, this is definitely something that is a big ticket item. So.
Yeah, I think we lost something. So I guess when people were entering the market in the 80s, 90s, and so on, you know, there was a 2-year TAFE course, mandatory process that was part of your certification or your licensing. There were overseas correspondence courses and so on, which were really useful. And the interesting thing is, I think a qualified technician, but one that knows entomology and pest biology and, you know, and obviously all the products and the treatment procedures and so on, is a confident and happier and more efficient technician. And anyway, like through your field biologist courses or other courses, I think maybe we shoot for the stars, create them, and that's just an opportunity for people to do them.
100%. Yeah, it's definitely something we have to work at this. This has to be done better than what it is right now. So yeah, it's the I can assure you that it's the #1 item on the agenda at board meetings. So and it has to be, because this needs to be fixed. And like I said, not just as a board member or the president of the association, I'm talking about Vasily from Allstate Pest Control now. I know that it needs to be fixed as a business owner, and that I also know that it's my responsibility. You know, I'm one of the problems, and we need to, as owners or decision makers in the industry, we need to be the ones that lead this fix up, basically. So we've got to find ways to turn the tide. I can see that people want to, you know, how do we recruit younger people? Well, we've probably got to train them. You know, we've got to train them and make them engaged, and not just make them, you know, a number or a body that gets thrown into a vehicle. We've probably got to pick people better too. So we've got to learn what the real avatar of who wants to actually be a pest controller once they're trained as well. So, you know, it's about picking the right person. So,
Exactly. Well, I'll touch on a couple of those issues that have just popped up in the chat feed here.
Yeah.
I'll get to those in a sec. Just on a contentious discussion that you and I just sort of mentioned prior to coming on to the air, national brands like Qantas and SPCR Mona are literally putting something right in front of our minds by creating a framework for all the employees, contractors and associates to be vaccinated.
Yeah.
Now we're going to start hearing more of the discussion of, you know, no jab, no work. You know, what are your thoughts on the Australian pest industry just leading that process?
Yeah, I mean, I really hate the word jab, to be honest.
Yes.
It's like every time people say it, I always think, what a terrible word.
It is.
It is a terrible word. Anyway, look, I think that we should be. It's something that we're already talking about. I think that we should be, as an industry, pro-vaccination for the industry.
Yes.
We should be encouraging people to do it because it's the quickest way out of this. There's no two ways about that. I'm personally fully vaccinated, and a lot of my staff are either fully vaccinated or going through the process of being fully vaccinated. I think that as an industry, we've got to be careful not to jump too quickly to say mandatory vaccination of the industry is required, because we need to understand what is going to happen in the industrial relations space. So Qantas doing it and SPC doing it, you know, let's see what happens when it gets to Fair Work, because more than likely it will get to Fair Work and it will be challenged, and then we'll be able to understand the path forward on this. But we should be definitely, as an industry, pro-vaccination. As a, you know, that's my personal feeling, and it's how we approach it also at Allstate Pest Control. So we're, you know, we have an infection control and hygiene standard operating procedure, which you know, says that if there's an opportunity to be vaccinated against something, then we should. And also, I think as an industry, we need to be realistic in understanding that the people that we service are going to expect it of us also. And that already happens to us as a business, not just with COVID, but it happens with flu, you know. So if you got to have that, the flu vaccine, if you're going to be servicing aged care, if you're going to be servicing some of the food manufacturers, and already we're seeing that some of the contracts that we have as an organisation are now also requesting evidence that we are doing that, and evidence that it's within our you know, policies and so on and so forth. So we have to be realistic, and we have to understand that it's more than likely going to be something that's expected of us. I guess, you know, it's about being responsible as an association to be sure of the implications of saying something like that before we say something like that. And that's one thing about APMA that I really want people to understand, is that one of the things that we do is we are very, very careful at not saying things that we shouldn't say, or not, you know, we always try and be responsible. At the end of the day, we know if we say everybody, it's all good, you can go and work when there's a lockdown, then people are going to go and work when there's a lockdown. And if we're not completely sure, we're not going to say it. You know, you have to be sure of these things. You can't be irresponsible in this space. You have to be on the money when it comes to these things, because we understand that people have got livelihoods on the other end of this. So and that's where we're at right now with that whole COVID vaccine, you know, being mandatory or not. So
exactly. Okay. Now, Vasily, our industry's women are at the forefront at the moment with the development of the Professional Women in Australian Pest Management Association, which I think is an awesome initiative. And congratulations to, you know, Nikki, Cassie, and the whole girl crew around what they're doing with webinars and meetings and so on. From the AEPMA's perspective, how do we encourage our industry's women and to get involved in what it is that you're trying to achieve? Yeah,
I mean, like, I think they're most certainly getting involved, because, you know, Nikki and her team, we've had Zoom meetings and team meetings between ourselves and talked about the things that we can do as an industry. So they're working at the stuff that, you know, they want to be involved with us in, and you know, there's 100% open dialogue there. And
good.
Yeah, Nikki's a champion, and all the people that, that's right, and all the people that work with her, you know, are definitely, you know, putting their best foot forward, and it's awesome to see. You know, my thing is that I just want as many people as possible being as active as possible. You know, So I just think it's awesome that there's another way for people to get involved in our industry. Yep. And so for us, I guess if there is a perception that we're not working together, then that's most certainly false. Yep. We are 100% constantly talking to each other. I think that in the future, you'll see a heap more, co-events. I think that, AEPMA conferences, which going forward will be called PestyCon and then be here, so that it's got its own name. You'll see that they're a part of that as well.
Right.
I think it's great. I mean, I can't wait for the day that there's a board member that's female from one of the states. I think that is something that, will be awesome. And I think that the day that there's a female president will be just as good. So, I come back to Allstate, and like we've got 3 female technicians. I think it's great, and they're sensational technicians. So they're just their attention to detail, and their customer service is second to none.
Yeah, tremendous. I mean, essentially, from looking at our industry's technicians, we are still a male-dominated area, male-dominated industry. I don't know what our percentages are, but possibly 1 or 2% of our industry technicians are females.
Probably, yeah.
But I guess thinking about Aussie men, we are traditionally guys that just sweep mental health under the carpet. And I think mental health is being impacted. I mean, I'm normally running at about 98, 99%. And I've noticed at different times, friends and myself, you go in and out of being at your absolute best during COVID, because we're either locked down or just working in a sort of a limited capacity. So from an industry's perspective, have we got a way that we can protect the mental health of our frontline technicians? Are there things that we can do apart from just the traditional mateship? But from an association's perspective, can we reach out and maybe assist our men and our women, for that matter, and assisting with mental health?
Well, I think the most important thing is that we talk about it, and it's clear that we are talking about it as an industry now. So, there was going to be, a session on it at the conference, and the fact that, you and I are having a discussion about it just opens up the possibility for someone to put their hand up and say, I've got an issue.
Yep.
Of course, I think that as an association, there has to be, again, we have to be realistic and understand that there's a limited resources. So there's only so much we can do. So I think the most important thing is that we are talking. So as long as we talk, and as long as we encourage business owners and decision makers in the industry to do something about it within their organizations, as well as make sure that when we do get to conferences and industry events, that there's a discussion about it. I think that they're the things that the association can do. And again, now coming from, stepping one down and saying, from an Allstate point of view, what we do here is we actually have an employee assistance program. So we pay an organisation that's called Access. So all of our staff are able to access 5 counselling sessions that are paid for by the business. Their family is able to access those as well. They're able to access it up to 8 weeks after they're employed with us. They're able to access it from the moment they're employed by us. We pay for those sessions. There's phone support, face-to-face sessions. It's completely confidential, and I know people use it because they send us the invoice. So I think what I'm saying is, as a business owner, there's things that we can do for our people that make their lives better and make them want to work for you, and help in this space. So, and these programs exist everywhere. So it's, and Access, I think, is a national organisation. There's other organisations. So I think what I would say is, I would encourage everybody in this space to do something like that. If they've got the ability to. And we all just got to keep discussing, talking, making it possible and accessible for people, to ask for help. So I don't know what more you can do right now, but I'm an open book on this one. So
So we could. I mean, I'm only just thinking out loud. We could actually run some fundraisers, like having something like Pestember, or something like that, where we can actually raise funds by doing something revolving around mental health, be it, you know, it could just be, we could link our members to do a complete run around Australia or do something. But then the idea is that those funds raised could be used for those industry members to basically use a service like that. Anyway, that's a great thing for us to be thinking about, because I have a feeling that there's people having impacts of mental health that traditionally would never have had an issue. And this constraint of COVID is leaving a mark right across every part of our fabric of society, but also our industry and so on. So
and it's not just COVID. It's not just COVID as well. So I mean, we obviously COVID's a big one, but family issues, you know, people, you know, problems with, you know, kids, marriage breakups, the list goes on and on, you know. So it's a never-ending list, and the world is not an easy place sometimes. So, you know, giving people the ability to access something like that, I think, is important. So,
yeah, cool. Well, we'll just keep that on the discussion point. Now, seeing I can actually see my face in the screen here, my next question is about an aging industry, because I was I was young and I had hair when I entered the industry at 21, but we are an aging industry, and I guess I still get excited about our industry, but I certainly think that we need to look at ways to not only attract both women and younger members to our industry. I think business probably needs to do more than just open up a checkbook and pay people more. I think we've got to look at ways to make pest management a more, I guess, young and vibrant and exciting marketplace or career choice. So how as an industry and how as an association can we try and make our industry look more vibrant and more interesting to join?
I think training, I think it probably comes back to training. So, you know, when people are trained, trained well, then they probably become engaged. And I think back in the days, if you listen to the people that have stuck around and made it a career, they were trained exceptionally well. And I think that that's probably the challenge. We need to look at the way we do that. And so that's probably my gut feel. I think that pest control is becoming and will continue to become a very, very important industry, because public health is clearly becoming far more important day by day. So I think there's a massive opportunity for the industry, and I think that it will become a career, you know, a really viable career option for people. So, and I think we're on, like, hasn't really happened yet. I think it's, you know, teetering around it kind of thing. I think we've got a massive opportunity. And these are the kind of the discussions that have happened at the Global Pest Management Coalition around really enforcing the importance of pest control globally. So I think that, you know, you're going to see, you know, lots of information around that coming out of NPMA, CEPA, FOETMA, you know, because I can assure you those discussions happen there. I've been a part of them. And so I think that I think we're really on the cusp of pest control becoming even more important than what we thought it was. You know, and it only takes, you know, a rat to be found to have, you know, transmitted COVID, you know, like, or something like that, for it to just go even crazier than what, you know, it has been. So I mean, I think we're on the verge of probably something way more special than what we think as an industry, you know, like that's, I think we're in a very, very good industry. We're in an industry that, so I guess training is probably the most important. And I think, you know, making sure that we communicate really well around, you know, how stable and fortunate we are in our industry to, you know, to do the things that we do, fix problems for people. So again, it's probably communication and training that are the two things we need to look at.
That sounds like it's heading in the right direction. Now, you just touched on something that I wanted to talk about during that question. So you're not only the president of the Australian Pest Managers Association, you're also president of the FAOPMA, so the Federation of Asia and Oceanic Pest Managers Association, but you're also a chairperson on what you mentioned earlier, the Global Coalition of Pest Management Associations. And so those, what sounds pretty obvious, you know, of all the different associations, just tell us about that and what that means going forward.
I guess in the past, there probably wasn't as much interaction between the different associations as what there should have been or could have been. And I guess World Pest Day and there was a food conference that really kicked it off.
Okay.
Which was great. And so now, we regularly meet, of course, over the virtual. That's right. And we've only had maybe one, I think, face-to-face meeting over the time, as you would expect. But it means that we're sharing. There's also been a standard that's been worked on by people from CEPA, MPMA, and a private consultant that's been worked on around pest control in food. So there's a bit happening there, and I think it's awesome because before there was many people doing lots of things sort of all in the same direction, but now there's, I guess, a little bit more consistency and a much more openness, and there's a heap of sharing that goes on in that space now. So it is pretty exciting, and I think that that's not only happening globally but also at FOETMA. Like, FOETMA is far more active than what it's ever been, and the communication and the sharing is far more active than it ever was. And these things, they take time as well. So it's like, not that they were doing something wrong before, it's just that it needed to go through all of the evolutions that it went through to get to where it is now. So it is an exciting time because like, I guess where I was going, pest control globally is becoming so much more important than it ever was before. Not that it wasn't, but hey, it's way more important now than it was before. So the fact that we're communicating with each other, the fact that there is these pathways for us to share and work towards one goal is definitely encouraging.
Yeah, and it certainly makes for one hell of a national conference if we can choose anywhere in the world to go for that group to get together.
Yeah, well, last year, I think we were talking before, it was literally going to be a pest control conference around food, a global one in Singapore. It was meant to happen in June last year. And of course, COVID hit. So it was going to be pretty exciting. And I would have thought that there would have been a definite large contingency from Australia going, being that it is Singapore, very easy for us to get to. So and there would have been a lot of people from Asia, and of course there was heaps of people planning to go from America and so on. So a bit sad that it never happened, but it will happen, obviously, once the world gets back to opening up. So.
So Zoom allows us all to connect virtually like we are here. Recordings of meetings have been useful, and certainly for us, I get to record this at 3:30, but we have people watching it on YouTube channels afterwards. But obviously for AEPMA, you've got virtual meetings and maybe training courses virtually. Obviously the conference hasn't happened, but obviously you've got access to all those speakers and that information can be shared. So what's the future outlook for virtual assistance or involvement or communication from AEPMA?
Yeah, so I mean, I've had a little bit of experience in this place because of FOETMA. So FOETMA's conference last year was virtual. This year is also going to be virtual. I mean, I would highly recommend anybody that's looking for a fix when it comes to, some content to jump on the FOETMA conference. Stephen Doggett's done a stack of work working with that.
I'll share that with everybody that's here and that's registered, because I think that's a really useful point.
Yeah, I think that it's not easy and it's quite expensive for us to be able to do that here. So I think that to be honest with you, again, we're being cautious and we're not trying to. We want to be sure versus just slapping something together. So it's about the quality of the product for AEPMA. So at the moment, we're waiting for the big face-to-face one where we can all do what we actually all want to do, and that's get together and break bread and all that kind of stuff. And there's heaps of content out there for everybody to access. And we are a member of FOETMA, and if we are looking desperately for that content, I would highly recommend that everybody jumps on that and supports that, because at the end of the day, supporting that's still going to be supporting our industry as a whole. So yeah, definitely jump on that.
So that's just thinking about you for a moment, just for a sec, because you're the CEO of a not just a small family business, but a family business with 45 people 45 employees. You're in the management team or the a chairperson on 3 national or international associations. I mean, how do you juggle time and how do you fit it all in?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I like being busy, so that's probably handy.
Yep.
I think I've heard many times someone say to me, if you want something done, give it to the busiest person. So I don't know, maybe I enjoy being busy. I've got to be honest. You know, and it drives me to be better. I think that I get way more out of doing all of these things than the effort that I put in.
Yep.
It's made me a better person. It's made me a better leader. It's helped me grow our business. It's helped me be a better dad, a better husband. So I guess it's I think I said it earlier that I try and find the positives in things. So doing it, I try and find the positives in it. I mean, this year, as of next month, I won't be the chairperson for FOETMA anymore. So that gets handed over. Yep. I've got heaps really good people around me. I've got you know, amazing support, mentors. It's not, you know, whilst it says that I'm the president, there's a heap of people behind it. And I'm just, I guess, the face of, you know, all that effort that goes in. Yep. So it's not all my work. I mean, sure, I'm the face of it at the moment, but then there'll be another face of it, and the person that is that person, you know, will have all of those cogs and those people driving it from behind, and so it. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I enjoy it, and I'm just honoured to be able to be given the chance to do it. So,
well, certainly in the decade that I've known you, with all the travel and the interaction with some industry heavy hitters, both here in Australia and overseas, you know, that's got to actually help you, not just in your management style, your communication style, but actually in running your business. And I wonder whether, you know, there are mentorships that the association can have to actually bring new management through to help develop the association of the future.
Yeah, well, 100%. I mean, I think you know, my mentor, David Gay, who's one of my mentors, my mentor of an association. Me and him talked about that this week. That we need to find the new leaders of the industry. And you know, I think the way that happened for me was that, you know, I was connected to David through people like Ted and Jason, you know, and back all that way ago. And that sort of set me on the path that I am on now. So I completely agree with that, you know, and you know, I'm more than happy to talk to anybody. I've posted my mobile number, you know, on Facebook pages. I'm more than happy to discuss and help wherever I can. And I mean, 100%, I think mentorship definitely is the biggest thing that I got out of this, and it's made me the person that I am. And it's parts of the reason why our business is so successful, because of all of that mentorship that I received. So what I would say to anybody watching this, that if you've got even half the inclination of, do I get involved, get involved, because I assure you, you will most certainly get more out of it than what you give.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Now we're just going to finish with a couple of quick questions. My last question, and then we've got two or three here in the chat text there we'll go through. But I guess from a crystal ball perspective, maybe with or without, let's go without COVID. What is in store for our industry in the coming years?
Well, we got one big conference coming up in June, that's for sure.
That's cool.
I think, we talked about it earlier, training. There's going to be, you know, we have to fix this. We have to do something about it. So I can see that there's going to be a lot more happening in that training space. I also believe that there's going to be a heap more that's going to happen in that public health space. So I think it's going to be public health. I think it's going to be training. You know, I think as an industry, you know, you look at the world and the way the things, I think, you know, Internet of Things, I think there's going to be a heap more that's going to go into that servitization kind of stuff that's happening in small parts now. You know, these are the areas that I see are the most, you know, in the future, I see that there's going to be the most activity. I think that people are going to finally work out that it's not about the chemical, it's about the person. And so once you find out that it's about the person, not the chemical, you're going to focus on those things. So,
Indeed, absolutely, well said. All right, so look, most of the discussion here in our chat has already been touched on. So what do we see in the future of the industry? And I think it's further development of what you've just said. How do we attract younger people to the industry? Well, we've discussed that, and I think we're on par for, you know, trying to make our industry look sexier, or you know, the adoption of new technologies, or obviously greater opportunities for ongoing personal development and training. So I think that's all things that we'll see. Working with universities, be it development of product or development of courses, is a question from Deanne. I'm sure there's greater opportunity, be it in terms of funding for development of product, or funding for the development of training to link with universities. Would you see our industry doing that?
I think it already happens. I think that it's just something that's happening at an organisational level. So
true.
Yeah, I mean, it might not be with universities, but it might be with think tanks, or business.gov has got a whole heap of programs, and I know that there's people in our industry accessing some of that stuff. So.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. And then another question here that we haven't really touched on, is there a future where there could be a national pest control license where industry members can actually work in different states in a more seamless type of way?
Well, I think no, I don't think so. I think that I think that it already exists, except that it's not exactly the way we want it. We want to have one license from the federal government. That's not going to happen, right? So it already exists. It's just like, you've got to have the competency units that match up with the state's requirements, and then you purchase that state license. So yeah, it's not perfect, but it is what it is, and I don't think that it's going to change. And really, I think we've got it pretty good in most states. I think there's some states that are working towards getting better licensing, one in particular, and we're constantly working towards that at the national board, working with that state and trying to improve it. But if you look at most of the states, there's really, really good licensing for most part. And I think our big issue is just I think licensing sometimes gets confused with training, and I think we've got to fix training before we even ever think about fixing licensing, because I think mostly it's pretty good.
Yeah, indeed. Look, just finishing up, having known this association for about 30 years, I do believe in its distant past, we can safely say there's been discussions about it being a boys' club, or being unobtainable to small businesses and even small business owners. And I have to say, from my involvement, at least as an associate member, but even just watching from a distance, I've seen our association change that around. Maybe not for 1% of the marketplace, but I see that we have an association for everyone. I see yourself and all your team communicating really openly on the various Facebook forums and LinkedIn and conferences and open discussions for members and non-members. And I think a lot of what I've seen in the past has been completely dispelled. So I know that when we're communicating openly with members and non-members, it's great to actually just get more people involved. And I can't remember whether we said this off air or just during the discussion, you were seeing an increase to the membership purely because of the association's strong footprint that it's put in place over the last 18 months. So
I hope it's that. Well, we had two members jump on board last week. So that's awesome. So
yeah. Well, it all makes sense, and it all obviously adds to the trajectory that the industry is going. So yeah, look, keep doing what you're doing. I want to say thank you personally, but also thank you from an industry's perspective. I think the last 18 months has just been tremendously difficult, and I have been impressed by the front foot approach that the association and yourself has put forward out there. So well done.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much. We're all in it together at the end of the day, and there's no difference between myself and anybody else in this industry. I own a business, and I worked in the business, and now I have the pleasure of working in the business. And I want the best for just as much as anybody else. So
yeah,
let's do it together. And
Yeah.
you know, if you're not a member, you know, join. Because the more the better. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, there's a lot of talk about being in this thing together, but then there's companies, and our association, I think, is leading by example. So I think that to me speaks more than talking about it, seeing
Yeah.
guys doing what you're doing. So
Yeah.
I think that's
Cool.
a good way to finish. Well, look, I'm just going to say thanks, Vas. I really
Thank you.
appreciate you spending some time with us. We don't catch up like we have in the past personally, but at least we can do it through a TV monitor.
Yeah.
But I also say thanks to everyone that's been here. We will send you some of the links that Vasily has mentioned, particularly the FAOPMA conference. I was in the conference last year, and it's a completely different experience, but you can go through from room to room to room to find the information you need. So there's a lot of detail. I went through the presentations, and there's some great presentations this year. So yeah, regardless of, you know, whether you think you're an Australian business, there's a lot of technical information coming from around the world funneling into that conference.
Yeah,
so
100%.
Good one to be involved in. So I just want to say thanks to everyone that's here. Thanks, Vasily. I'll send everyone that's here an email. This discussion will just go up on YouTube as always.